Okay, here you go. Array, and I mentioned this a little bit last week, but I definitely want to get in more detail to it now. Array starts with an endpoint, and all the points on one side of that point. There we have array. And let's put some letters on the array. Let's call that point A, point C, point B. Last week, you could name it. Did the order matter when you named a line or a segment? You could call it segment AC or CA. It would have been the same thing. Not for array, though. Order matters. When you do the symbols for array, first, the symbol for array is a smaller array. The endpoint of the array's got to go first. Has to. So what's the endpoint of my array? A. So A has to come first. After that, it's up to you. So I could call this ray AC, or I could call this ray A, BC, CB. It's up to you. Yep. Ray AB, 3 letters instead of 2. Yep. As long as the endpoint comes first. All right. The endpoint must come first. Endpoint must come first. Good review for tomorrow. Opposite rays. Collinear again. These rays are where? Collinear. Collinear going into tomorrow. They have to be on the same line. Yes. All right. So let's draw a line first, and then we'll put 2 opposite rays on there. Two rays that share the same endpoint. Can you guys see those 2 rays that share the same endpoint on my diagram? Got to have the same endpoint, though. Got to have the same endpoint. Here we go. 22. See 2 rays that have the same endpoint? 22? Yeah, you do. G. I didn't hear the other letter. GH is 1 ray. And what's the ray that's opposite of it? I got to name it with the endpoint first. GF. Okay. Both of these are rays that share endpoint G. Questions there? Comments? Yep.
How are 2 collinear rays different than a line?
It's not. You put them together, it makes a line.
Okay.
Yep. Put them 2 opposite rays together, it's going to form a line. Right? That's why we say they're collinear. Okay, in your group real quick, I'll give you about a minute. Do not name all of them. We don't have the time for that today. Name about 2 or 3 rays in that diagram. Name 2 or 3 rays and then answer questions 2A and 2B. Go right ahead. About 1 or 2 minutes right now. For me that you found. Name a couple rays that you found. Number 1, name a couple rays that you found. Okay, RS. TW. Anybody want to yell out another ray? SW. Fine. Now, somebody asked me a great question last period. They said, well, RS, isn't that a line segment? It is if you put a line segment symbol over the top. Do you see why these symbols are starting to matter now? When you say RS and it's got that symbol above, I know you are talking about from here down. But you put the line segment symbol above it, I know now you're just talking about that piece. Symbols are important. Okay, they are important. All right, going to 2A, name a pair of opposite rays where T is the endpoint now. T, 15, what do you got for me? TS, TW, like it. TS and TW. Instead of TS, maybe you called it TR. That's fine too. All right, that's fine. And then just another pair of opposite rays for me. Another pair. 5, another pair. SR, SW. Like it. Nice job. Anything. Why are we talking about rays when the topic today is angles? Because when you put two rays together, it ends up forming what we call an angle now. All right, so let's put two rays that share the same endpoint. Let's put some points on here. And I'm going to put a little number in the middle there. But all right, 3 ways to name it. 3 ways to name a line, and I'll show you the symbols for everything here now as well. You can name it by a capital letter. That's the vertex. What do I mean by vertex? That's where the two rays meet. The vertex is where the two rays meet. So what's one way I could call this angle based on that method? Here you go, 21. Angle A. All right, now here's my symbol for angle. I do a little less than sign with an arc mark through there. Now, do you have to put the arc mark? No, you don't. Okay, you don't have to put the arc mark. Jack, how'd you name it? Angle A. Could name it angle A. Sometimes you'll see a little lowercase letter or a number in there. You could also name it that way. So what's another secondary way I could name it? 14. Angle 2. So angle 2. The final way is the one most commonly we're going to do in here. And that's naming it by 3 letters where the vertex is in the middle. Vertex has to be in the middle. So name a third way, which we're going to name this one. 27? Got it. Or you could go CAB, just as long as A, the vertex, is in the middle. That is the most common way, everybody, we are going to name an angle. And here's 3 letters. Here's why. Don't draw this, please. Let me throw on another ray right here. And let me put point D there. Remember our original angle? Can you name that angle A now? And what's the problem naming it angle A? You're going to be like, which one? That could be angle A. That's a vertex with A. This could be angle A. And the big one could be angle A. So name it with 3 to be on the safe side. Okay? Do you remember when we did congruent segments going into tomorrow's quiz for review? 2 segments that are congruent. What do you know about them? Oh, boy. Same measure, same distance. Well, can I have 2 angles that? Oh, I thought this was coming up. Never mind. Scratch that for about 2 minutes. Different types of angles. Right angle. I'm going to fly by these because I know you know them. Right angle measures what? 90 degrees. Measures exactly 90 degrees. That was awkward. Anybody know if you're looking at a diagram that there's a right angle involved? Anybody know the symbol if there's a right angle?
Isn't it like the square?
It's the box. Yeah, it's the box. There you go. There's the right angle. That angle measures 90 degrees. I don't know if some of you heard the next one. Straight angle measures exactly 180. It's another way of saying what vocabulary term we've gone over this year. It's a line. Yep. That's all. It's a fancy way of saying it's a line. All lines measure 180 degrees. Don't call it a straight line. All lines are straight. What about acute? You remember that one? Okay, yes, less than 90, but I'm actually going to get a little bit more detailed because you can, not this year, but next year, you can have negative angles. So I'm going to say between 0 and 90. Measures between 0 and 90. And what about an obtuse angle? Not greater than 180. Greater than 90, but less than 180. Yes, so measures between 90 and 180. All right. Some I'm sure you're familiar with. All right. Okay, here's what I meant to say before is congruent angles. If two segments can be congruent, so can two angles. They have the same measure. So draw, sketch, two angles that look congruent. They have the same measure. DEF. And XYZ. And 52 degrees. We're all in agreement they have the same angle measure. 52 degrees, that makes them congruent. How can I write it mathematically now? Angle. Name the first angle for me, any way you'd like. Name the first angle for me. 22, name the first angle. It's an E, but it's all right. So, no, not my fault. DEF. And name the other angle. Name the other angle. Here you go. 22 again. Name the other angle. Yep. And we all remember the congruent symbol, the equal sign with the similar above it. How did we mark two segments congruent on a diagram? What markings are on there that say those two segments are congruent? Hash marks. Well, I can't put hash marks on angles. But what I can put that says they're congruent are what are called arc marks. Right in between the two rays. I can put these here called arc marks. And when I see those arc marks, hey, those angles are congruent. Are you ready to construct a congruent angle now? This will be the third one. Construct meaning, what do I need? Compass and straight edge. Yes, compass and straight edge would ask me to construct. All right, so make sure everyone's ready to roll here. I'm going to make an angle with my compass and straight edge that has the same angle measure as A. All right, first step. I want you to go back to Friday when I showed you how to copy a segment. What was the very first step? Even before we touched the compass, what was the very first step I needed to do to copy a segment? Because it's going to be the first step here. What do you got? Oh, I don't want to call it a line anymore. What do I call it? Make endpoint on. What's that called? We just make a ray. Here you go, guys. Take your straight edge. Make a ray where the endpoint is B. First step, take your compass, put it on vertex A. Take your compass point and put it on vertex A. And now I need you to, using your compass, make an arc through both rays. Make an arc through both rays right now. Make an arc through both rays. I don't care the size of the arc. All right. But after you do that, leave your compass the same opening, please. Leave your compass the same opening. Go over to endpoint B and make an arc that intersects that ray you just created. I don't care the size, but using the same opening as your first arc. Bless you. All right. Now, do you see on the angle we're copying, angle A, you have 2 points of intersection on the rays. Do you see that? The arc intersects in 2 spots. I'd like you to open up your compass to those 2 spots. Okay, do not make any markings. Just open up your compass to those 2 spots. No markings needed. You're just measuring that opening using your compass. And then from there, you do not go back to the endpoint B. you go back to where your arc intersected your ray. I'm going to put my point, compass point, right there. All right, I don't put it on B, I put it right where it intersected. And you can do this above or below the ray. I do not care. Above or below the ray. Make an arc that intersects. Maybe I can do it sooner or later here. Make an arc that intersects that first one. Again, it can go above or below. I don't care. I just need two arcs that intersect. Some of you, they may not intersect. That's because you have to go back and make your first one longer. So go ahead and do so. And then you guys are on point right now. You take your straight edge and draw in the second ray of that angle. What can you put on both angles that show that they're congruent? What did we just discuss here? Arc marks, yep. I'm just going to put 2 because we already have the original construction marks. Every year I have students arguing with me. Those two are not congruent. They do not look the exact same size. True, but what makes two angles congruent? Not the size, the angle measure. And yes, they have the same angle measure. All right, it's not the size of it for angles, it's the measure. Last thing, I don't know if I told you this on Friday, never erase any construction marks. Did I tell you that? Never erase. So tomorrow's quiz, do not erase anything because that's how I grade them. Okay, do not erase any construction marks. Yes?
For the art marks and for anything else from the congruency, can we use the same one for different?
What do you mean the same one?
Like if we use one.
That's as long as it's not on the same diagram.
Same.
Yeah, because if that's the case, then you got to put two arc marks. Like if you have two 52-degree angles and two 48-degree angles in the same you don't want to use one there because not all four are congruent. But if you go from problem 6 to 7, yeah, that's fine. You can use one. Yep, that's fine. We all good? All right, one last thing I need to show you. And that's one last term, which is an angle bisector. Bisects. What's that word sound like it does? Bisects. Cuts it, specifically cuts it two congruent angles. Okay, we don't need our construction. We don't need our compasses anymore. Given, what's this telling me here? What's this symbol for? Ray AX bisects. Bisects again, cuts the angle into two congruent angles. Cuts angle BAC into two congruent angles. So sketch, draw right now. Ray AX on that angle right now. Go ahead, sketch Ray AX right now on that angle BAC. We're going to just make a ray that looks like it's going to cut it in half. No compass needed. I don't know why we're drawing slashes through the angle here. Remember, Ray AX. A is the end point, followed by a line past it. We're not looking for greatness. Make sure it's AX. AX. So make sure X is somewhere on there. What's that ray doing? What's that ray doing? Bisecting, cutting it in half. Are there markings you can put on your diagram? Are there two angles in that diagram that are the same measure now? Name the angles so I can put arc marks on them. Name the angles. BAX and, okay. Cuts the angle in half. All right, let's use that on an algebra problem to finish off today. All right, so take a look at example 1. This is where we'll finish today. Bless you. All right, look at the directions first. KJ and KL, opposite rays. All right, we know KL, KJ, opposite rays. Perfect. KN, everyone look at ray KN. See it on your diagram. Ray KN bisects LKM. Everyone find angle LKM. Trace it with your finger, please. Follow the letters. LKM. LKM. Did everyone see that angle we're referring to? That angle is being cut in half by KN. Where can I put markings? Give me two angles that are congruent now. Two angles that are congruent if this is a bisector. Go ahead. LKN, this angle right here, LKN, and what other angle? MKN. Those two are congruent because KN is cutting that whole angle in half. All right? Now let's go to example 1. LKM, follow the fingers. LKM, everyone see LKM? 7x minus 5. So this whole angle here, 7x minus 5. NKM. NKM, follow with your fingers. NKM, 3x plus 9. Find LKM. What equation can I set up first to solve for x? What do you know about these two angles here? They're congruent. So if that one's 3x plus 9, this one also has to be. And what do those two angles add up to? 7x minus 5. All right, because I knew what bisector meant, I know those two angles are congruent, so I added them together and set them equal to the whole angle. Yes. 2 times. That's fine. Yep. 2 times. Yep. Absolutely. Okay, so go ahead, solve for x. Plug it back in to find LKM. While you're working on that, I want to remind people that the homework is not due until Thursday because I want you focused on this quiz tonight. And we do not have school Wednesday, so I'm not checking or answering any questions on tonight's homework until Thursday. Okay, until Thursday. Keep grinding with this one. X should have been 23, and the angle should have been 98. You do not have to finish the examples we did not do. Homework due on Thursday. If you didn't grab an assignment sheet on your way in, there's some right here on the desk. I have a feeling some didn't. If you didn't grab an assignment sheet, stop on by and get one on your way out so you know what the homework is.